Tennessee popping pads as we speak, as we're live each and every weekday at 10 a.m. So we'll get to 4 downs, Caleb, and talk about the final goals, the final hurdles that they hope to cross before the orange and white game. Well, let's start with this. What's been your take in general on spring practice? What's some of your takeaways? And aside from what we're going to address here in just a second.
Well, I think that I think that Josh Heupel has not had certain things work out the way he wanted them to, but others work out better. The more I've read about receiver, I think he had an idea going in of what he wanted to do at receiver, and I think it's exactly where he wants it to be. Um, and I think the rotation is exactly what he was hoping it would turn out to be. I think the offensive line is a different story. I think he knew he was going to have to mix some guys around. I think he went the transfer portal route to do it, and I think he's kind of not fully happy because who he thought would be plugged in at center and plugged in at left guard and right guard, that's not a guarantee at this point anymore. And so it looks like he's got to work on that.
It's one of two things, and I'm not sure which it is. It's either some guys have risen up and good for them, and they're pushing a little bit, or the guys, call them out, like William Satterwhite. Some of those guys, Sham Umarov, have not ascended the playing ladder like you thought that they would. That would be troubling because ultimately, I believe the crossroad for Josh Heupel will be the offensive line. He's either going to have to produce better players on the offensive line, or he's not going to last at Tennessee. You just simply cannot miss on as many offensive linemen and or lack to develop them as has happened under Heupel in his 4 years at Tennessee.
Right, exactly. And that's, we talk about it like we do stats of the day. I do stats of like the decade, and the stat of the decade is Josh Heupel's entering his 5th year and has yet to start an offensive lineman that he signed out of high school. I mean, that's a crazy stat, guys, no matter how you slice it. So that is, I totally agree with you. I think that it's a combination of misevaluation and there's some development issues. And honestly, I just think they don't all have as clear a vision at offensive line as they typically do at quarterback or in the passing game.
Yep. Let's get to 4 downs, which will be brought to you today by Double D Piping, the best in fire suppression. Double D Piping, serving the entire Southeast. Double D Piping.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Bam.
Coop here. First down.
All right. First down is this as we take a look at the final goals of spring practice with 1 week left. Figure out the interior offensive line. That was number 1. I thought that was going to be Satterwhite. I thought it would be Wendell Moe at right guard. I thought left guard would be Sham Umarov. And now it seems to be much more in flux than we thought previously, Caleb.
Yes, it does. And the problem is, we thought it would be William Satterwhite at center, and then Wendell Moe, Sam Pendleton, and then Sham Umarov. 2 of the 3 would take the guard spots, but it looks like they've been working Pendleton at center, I believe, right?
Yes.
Recently. And so, which would suggest that Satterwhite hasn't come on the way they were hoping he would.
And Max Anderson's getting a little chatter too.
Well, I thought he would get some last year as a depth guy. So I think that's to be expected at this point, but you're right. It's kind of one of those things where because they had planned for Satterwhite to be plugged in at center, and we heard Cooper Mays taught him and things like that. I don't think Pendleton is starting at center because he's just shown himself to be that much better. I don't think they would have even given him a look if William Satterwhite was doing what they hoped he would do.
I agree. I think the idea was to put Pendleton at left guard, put Moe at right guard, and ride with Satterwhite moving forward. But don't be surprised from what I'm told if Pendleton does end up holding on to that center spot. That's troubling to me. Some people seem to think it's close between Anderson and Satterwhite. I can understand a transfer coming in from a big program like Notre Dame and Pendleton, and he holds a guy off that's an underclassman and pretty much ready to go, but he holds him off because he's 3 years more mature physically. I get that, but the fact that Max Anderson is in the conversation, I think is a little bit troubling.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, second down, Coop. You do a great job of introducing that. Establish a backup quarterback. I think that's done. I think it's Merklinger.
You think I think it's McIntyre. This is
pretty confident based off people I've talked to. It's going to be Merklinger.
Really? Maybe. Okay, let me ask you this. Is it Merklinger because they don't want to give McIntyre the chance to have the case to be the better quarterback than Nico?
Oh, I think that would be looking a lot into it. I just think it's having a year head start. I mean, it seems like we're already halfway through the football season, doesn't it? In off season, but in reality, McIntyre's only been on campus for a little bit more than 3 months.
Yes, but we heard a lot of things about him coming out. And
and I like him as a talent better than Merklinger. And I'm not saying that with summer workouts. Listen, skill position players, I've said this before, you can advance up the playing chain as fast as anybody at the skill positions during summer camp. It's every bit what spring camp is for offensive linemen or preseason camp is for defensive linemen. It's an opportunity to make a move. So don't be surprised if McIntyre makes a move. I just don't think it's happened yet. And I don't think that's any indictment of his play.
no, I think that even if he were to push, look, I think that there's a belief that I think McIntyre from a raw talent perspective and intangibles is already showing himself to where he could be more endearing than Nico himself.
No, I think I wouldn't argue with that, but I would say this: if we're having the conversation that McIntyre is really pushing Merklinger right now, then you've got a major problem with Merklinger.
I mean, Merklinger couldn't even push Gaston more last year, so I think you already have a major problem with Merklinger. So that's. I want to get to Timothy's super chat just real quick because he shares this and says, "We pay them to come and they haven't proved a thing."
I think some of let me address that if you don't care.
Yeah.
I think that something that's happened in NIL that's good. I think guys are getting like $50,000. A David Sanders might get $200,000, and I feel pretty good about those numbers. But you're not seeing guys get Nico money, and you're not going to see that happen anymore until they prove themselves for a year at a school, even if they don't play that much. But they prove they're making it to the meetings on time, they're practicing hard, they have the talent and the ability. Obviously, Nico, after year number 1, could have come asked for more money because he had Tennessee in a lurch. But as a whole, I think that's the way this is going. So I don't feel like Tennessee nor any other school that's competent in NIL is overpaying on the front end anymore.
No, I totally agree. And Timothy, I love you, and I appreciate the super chat, but you call us negative Nancy's all the time, and it sounds like you're being the negative Nancy right here. But
gosh, Caleb's taking receipts.
But he just said it later too. I love you, Timothy. We appreciate everything you do. So, but yes, I agree. I think now there's a little more of pay on the back end and pay on the front end. And by the way, Tennessee's been ahead of that more than most schools. I can tell you this, having covered them to a certain degree on the recruiting trail and things I've listened to, and you're a little more even in tune this than I am, Dave. Tennessee, more than most schools, promises more on the back end than the front end with NIL, don't they?
Yeah, but I think Michigan started that. I think Ohio State did that. I think Georgia's going to start to do that. So I wouldn't say they were in the front end, but let's say they're on the crest of the wave. Let's put it like that. Double D Piping, the best in fire suppression services. More areas in which Tennessee needs to address in the final week of spring practice. After a quick message from Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Continue to develop the defensive backs. If Jermod McCoy was healthy and a part of this group, would you be concerned about the defensive backs at all, or does he have a ripple effect through the whole crew?
Oh, he has a ripple effect through the whole crew. I think one, Tennessee safeties need to have more of an impact early because Jermod McCoy is out or going to be banged up. The cornerbacks need to be able to step up. And then we're talking about Boo Carter. You know, everybody's talking about the excitement of him being in the slot. But honestly, his role in nickel is much more important with Jermod McCoy out or banged up early. So, I mean, I don't think Jermod McCoy was ever the type of cornerback that shut down one side of the field. He's not like a Patrick Peterson or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. From what I watched last year, you didn't see him do any of that, did you, Dave? Like shut down a whole side of the field, Jermod McCoy?
No, I mean, I think he's. I mean, to me, that's a really elite cornerback. That's probably what 3 to 5% of the cornerbacks that play. I don't think that happens.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think Jermod McCoy was more of, and I'm not comparing this team to that, But
I think
remember
Alontae Taylor's a fair comparison to level of play.
Yeah, Alontae Taylor's a fair one. Also, the way the Legion of Boom was set up with Seahawks, Tennessee secondary was not the Legion of Boom. Not even close. But what I'm saying is, remember, none of those players, Dave, remember the cornerbacks, Jeremy Lane and Richard Sherman, they didn't shut down one side of the field. It was just a very complimentary team. And I see that with Jamal McCoy is a very good cornerback who's very complimentary with the rest of the secondary, but losing him takes a huge backdrop. And so, yeah, I think Jamal McCoy just started a ripple effect. And also, like I said, puts a lot more pressure on the safeties, which that's where it's not the Legion of Boom. The Legion of Boom had 2 Hall of Fame safeties, and Tennessee does not have 2 Hall of Fame safeties on this team.
I agree with that. We'll get to fourth down, brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. hdknoxville.com. hdknoxville.com. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. What are we doing here, Dave?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right, fourth down is this, and I know Caleb's pretty set on this. That is, pick the 3 wide receivers and stick with them. I don't think you'll have a problem with Josh Heupel doing that. I think that's what his offense tends to do. He just has to make sure he picks the right ones.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think Josh Heupel has somewhat fallen in love with the receivers this spring, and that's the good side. I think Tennessee's very encouraged by the play of their receivers in the spring. When I say pick the right ones and stick with them, yeah, I think you got to get them all the reps through fall camp. I think that was an issue last year. He was trying to make Brew McCoy work, but Brew McCoy wasn't fully healthy and never got right. Dante Thornton struggled with injuries. Squirrel White did. If I'm Tennessee, my goal is Mike Matthews and Chris Brazzell are the 2 wideouts on either side. That's it. No questions asked. And then the slot is Braylon Staley and Boo Carter, alternating drives.
What percentage Carter Staley?
50-50.
Oh, my gosh. It's going to be like 80-20 Staley.
No, it's going to be 50. Then Carter's bolting if it's 80-20. Because Deion Sanders is this
year.
Sorry?
He can bolt after this year if he needs to. You can't you can sacrifice a spring camp, but you can't sacrifice a season to make some guy happy because he's going to run to Colorado.
Deion Sanders is waiting in the wings for Boo Carter. I am telling you, he's literally got a scout probably sitting outside Neyland Stadium trying to talk to Boo Carter every day.
Newbert Collision Center for nearly 50 years. Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. JoeNewbertCollision.com. Stat of the day.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, we'll get to that super chat here in a second, Timothy. What's our stat of the day here, Caleb?
All right, so for 2 years in a row, a Tennessee one-and-done transfer has won the college basketball award for the best player in the nation at his position. Dalton Connect won the Julius Erving Award for the nation's best small forward last year. Chaz Lanier won the Jerry West Award for the nation's best shooting guard this year.
That's good stuff, but do you feel like we're kind of trying to continue the tradition of naming the top players at their own position when in reality, this is turning into pretty much positionless basketball with the exception of a point guard and a big. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, with the high pick and roll, it's mostly positionless basketball, and even with the big, I mean, even with the point guard is not necessarily totally locked in at one position. But I mean, the only thing that makes they bring the ball up the court. You know what I mean? So
repeat that. You went underwater for a second.
I said the only thing that makes a player a point guard at this point is if whoever brings the ball up the court. You know, so it's not like there's anything special with that. I agree, but it's still telling what Tennessee's been able to do with transfers. And this is I wrote about this I wrote about it 2 years ago, that the transfer portal is very conducive to Rick Barnes because of the type of players he's going to get. And he's proving that time and time again.
All right. So a super chat goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. Timothy has this to say. I think they should be paid like us peasants, and it should be across the board, $4,000 a month and still earn royalty. I'm joking. Well, there does need to be some sort of salary cap.
Again, you can only do a salary cap if the players unionize. You can't just arbitrarily. Then otherwise you're violating antitrust laws.
Right. I do think they'll have to unionize.
Right. Now, and the thing with unionizing is, as you know this, Dave, the top players in a sport don't want a union at all, because that opens a door for a salary cap and that hurts their money. So it's, let's talk the NBA for a minute. The players union in the NBA, probably cuts about $60 million a year off LeBron James's salary and spreads it across to the lesser players, doesn't it? Like LeBron is probably making less than half of what his market value would call for without the players union.
Now, let's get back to Boo Carter for a second. Kevin nailed it. He can have him if it's him over what's best for the team. That's absolutely right. So if Boo, let's play this scenario out for a second, and maybe we'll get into this deeper. If Boo Carter isn't happy with the run he's got at spring camp, and I say touch the ball 20 times in the fall, if he's not happy with that and he's upset and he's griping going into December, see ya. I'd be like, go. I mean, you did, especially with Josh Heupel, who believes in chemistry as much as he does.
Yes.
Do you want to dive in this tomorrow? How far should Tennessee bend over backward for Boo Carter?
Or just for, but the question isn't, the question is tough to answer because it's what promises did they make on the front end? I mean, Dave, you and I mean, let's talk about like, you blame Mike Shanahan more than Albert Hainsworth for that disastrous of a signing, right? In 2009, because basically Hainsworth was lied to about what his role would be.
I think it depends on whether or not Albert's listening, but I think it's pretty close to 50-50. But if he's listening, then it's all Shanahan because Albert's big and fast and he could beat me up.
Yeah. But like I always felt that like Albert was lied to about the role he was going to play in that defense.
He definitely that's his contention for sure. They told that Shanahan brought him in. I don't know why Albert would lie. Albert's had some weird moments in his career, but he's never lied that I know of. And he said that Shanahan brought him in and said, if you have 10 sacks this year, that's a failure because you're there to take up blockers. And he is not a Vince Wilfork type. So yes, I mean, I think that's out there. I don't know how we got it. How do we get on Shanahan?
Well, we're talking about bending over backwards for a player and like but it's like you have to respect somewhat what you promised them. Like you shouldn't just, and you know, there's a little give and take. Yeah, you got to exert your authority as the coach, but you also like, if you promise Boo Carter a bunch of these things to keep him and then you lie to him, I mean, that's, even if you let him walk to Colorado, we got to save this for tomorrow, but your chemistry is wrecked no matter what at that point. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's something Butch Jones would do. I think that he did that with Jalen Hurd, promised him running back when he should have been a defensive end and he'd still be playing in the NFL. And that's something that a dumb coach would do like Butch Jones. I don't think Josh Heupel would do that. I don't think he'd overpromise. He might promise something. He might promise.
Oh, but here's the thing. Butch Jones didn't overpromise. Butch Jones promised. He kept his promise. It was just to the detriment of the team that he kept his promise.
Right. That's my point. So if Boo Carter is upset about not getting whatever amount of touches, it might be 20, which I think is a reasonable number. If he's not happy with that headed in December, don't keep riding and beating that horse. Does that make sense? Like Butch did with Jalen Hurd. That to me was the saddest part about that whole thing is Jalen Hurd was not a real running back.
Well, and that's
a big athlete.
This is the debate of a different time, but like sometimes the best decisions ever made are broken promises. Philip Fulmer breaking his promise to Jason Witten. You know, he said, you'll play defensive end, then 2 days in, oh, nope, you're tight end. Hey, it's the same with.
Yeah, it's still the best or right up there with it's the Rashad Baker. Most natural receiver I've ever seen playing defensive back the next day.
No, that's true. You're right. It's the same with politics. Dave, you know the most popular positions ever like taken in history and by decisions by presidents are all broken promises. Like Lincoln's promise, I'm not going to try to free the slaves. Well, he broke that promise, and we're kind of glad he broke that promise, aren't we?
It's probably the right thing to do in retrospect.